Game Up, the sponsor of our podcast. They make a thirst-quenching adult beverage with a special blend of electrolytes. Comes in a variety pack with 4 great flavors: fruit punch, orange, lemon lime, and grape.
That's right, guys. And it's only 110 calories. It's low carb, so enjoy yourself some Game Up and don't feel guilty about it. One of the greatest boxing fights you'll ever see, possibly the greatest 3-round boxing fight you'll ever see. Marvin Hagler and Thomas Hearns. Let me give you a little stuff here before we get going into the fight. Al Michaels and Al Bernstein were the commentators. Al Bernstein is just a classic boxing announcer that I grew up on. Tuesday night fights on USA Network. It didn't matter. He still sometimes is around for some of these classic boxing fights. You know, Hearns had a big reach advantage going to this. He was WBC super welterweight champion. It wasn't on the line. This is for Hagler's titles. Hearns is 40-1 with 34 KOs. His only loss coming into this was to Sugar Ray Leonard, a fight that he was winning into. Sugar Ray came back and, ended up finishing him. So Hearns, ironically, had predicted a 3rd-round knockout going into this fight, which, of course, that did not work out the way he wanted. Marvin Hagler, now he's the undisputed middleweight champ going into this. He was the WBA, WBC, and IBF middleweight champion and the ring undisputed middleweight champion. Hagler had 10 title defenses. He was actually chasing a record at the time, they noted. He was 62-2 with 50 knockouts. I think that's incredibly impressive to have 60 wins at high-level competition with 50 knockouts. Bob Arum was the promoter here, which I thought is interesting because Bob Arum is still promoting to this day. Doc Severinsen was the guy who did the national anthem with the trumpet. This is was interesting to see national anthem with a trumpet. Richard Steele, one of our favorite beloved boxing referee, was young here, but he was refereeing. And that's all about I really want to say leading into this. First round was amazing. I thought Al Bernstein said that might have been the finest round he ever seen in boxing. Chevy, what did you think of this first round?
Yeah, Haggler came out looking to just kind of march Hearns down, and he was landing body shots on him. But Hearns was just staying really light on his feet. He had great footwork. He was trying to pop the jab out. Definitely looked like the better, technical boxer. Haggler was trying to take the power puncher approach. But Hearns was planting and countering when Marvin was entering. Hearns stuns him early in the round. He cuts him. But they basically just continue. There's a relentless pace for all 3 of these rounds. And then when 30 seconds left, Haggler finally pins Hearns in the corner and starts laying in a bunch of body shots on him. Some low blows, according to the commentators, which I didn't see a lot of low blows, a lot around the belt line. And then Hearns ends up getting wobbled at the end of the round as he's circling out of the corner. He was still smiling. He did a lot of smiling in this fight.
Smiling. Yeah. My girlfriend was watching me watch this fight, and obviously she's not a boxing fan, and she's like, keep smiling. She's like, he looks like he's getting beat up. I'm like, he is. It's very tough. And round 2, I mean, that's really more the same here, right?
Yeah, the round starts the same. A lot of jabs from Hearns and footwork. He was trying to keep the distance, it looked like, because that was really when he was touching on Haggler. Early in the round, Marvin was throwing a lot of lunging shots. He wasn't able to quite get inside, but he just kept the pressure on and kept trying to march him down. And then again, with 30 seconds left, he pins Haggler up against the ropes and lands this series of combinations, a lot of body shots again. Hearns is throwing hard shots in there as well, but Haggler was landing the better punches, a lot of combinations, and he stunned him again.
Yeah, and Hearns just consistently, he had a great jab, and he was really trying to use that reach for that jab, but Marvin Hagler really just, throughout this fight, did a really great job of getting inside. He was really able to get inside, and for a guy, I guess that was labeled maybe a little boring going into this at time, they talked about, like a technical guy. That was not the case here. He just bit down on his mouthpiece and he chased it. And then round 3.
Yeah, Hearns starts again with the footwork and the jabs, but you can see his legs are starting to get a little wobbly underneath him. It's a lot of movement, a lot of shots he ate and has been dishing out, so a lot of fatigue setting in. And then Hearns gets caught with a right, and pair that with the fatigue, it sends him kind of stumbling across the ring. He's still smiling at this point, but when he turns his back to run, Marvin chases him, and when Hearns turns to plant again, he gets caught with a very heavy right hand, and then a second very heavy right hand, and that puts him down, and then Tommy Hearns was not able to beat the count to stand up.
Yeah, I mean, he got up.
He got up at 10.
Right.
And then the ref It was technically a TKO.
It was, yeah. But his legs were gone, and Richard Steele was not going to let him continue fighting at that point. You can see, which
He
is a
had to
great
be
call.
carried to his corner afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, heart of a champion. You know, he definitely wanted to keep fighting. Yeah, great fight overall. Hagler, of course, I mentioned on here, I forget the guy, but he was chasing the record. He had a few more fights. He doesn't get that record. He's going to win his next fight after this. And then he ends up fighting Sugar Ray Leonard in another super fight. That one goes to distance. And he loses the fight. And it's an arguable fight that Hagler had won. It was a very exciting fight. I remember Ray Leonard was coming back from like an eye injury, and it was all the talk at that time when I was a kid. And basically, it was so weird to me because you see so many people in boxing in that time period and later on in life, and so many other things I watched, leave and then come back, leave and then come back. Hagler just left. He was done. He was pretty disgusted, I think, with the judging. And yeah, he never came back after that fight. And it was just interesting because after this fight, they had mentioned it. His wife wanted him to retire. And Hagler, in a very 1980s thing, you probably want to hear today, quote, said, "That's wife talk." You know, like he's like, I got stuff to do, I got stuff to accomplish. So Marvin Hagler, yeah, he was a man's man, and I've talked to a few people that said they knew him. They grew up in that Brockton, Mass area. And they said that he was just a really down-to-earth guy. And it seemed like he took a real blue-collar approach to boxing. So, you know, great fight. And in particular, if you want to find this fight or that Marvin Hagler-Ray Leonard fight even on ESPN+, both are there. You type in Marvin Hagler, those two fights will show up. Along
They're
with
also on Top Ranks YouTube.
So you can always look for that. So you'll find some of these great, exciting, old-school boxing fights around there. And I was glad we went back and checked it out. And I don't know, maybe Leonard and Hagler will be another one we could watch someday, but that's a little more of a commitment. That's 12 rounds. So
this watch of these actually sent me down a little bit of a boxing rabbit hole and sent me on. I don't know if you remember this guy, Joe Calzaghe. He's in the 90s. He was a great fighter. You should check him out. I think he was like 47-0, but this great Welsh boxer. Lots of first-round finishes. But I remember watching him with my father when I was a kid. So you should go back and check out some of his fights. He had a war with Roy Jones Jr. He was a super middleweight. So check him out.
It's kind of funny you say down the rabbit hole, because I was talking about this with my girlfriend about growing up watching boxing, and I talked about heavyweights, and I talked about George Foreman. And I remember the comeback trail of George Foreman. And it felt like he fought so frequently. You know, he was fighting from the bottom up. Like, George came back. He didn't look for a big fight because he had been gone for so long. And he fought a lot of guys that were lesser than, because he was older. So they booked it that way. And, you know, he knocked most of them out in the first 2 rounds. There'd be some in the 4. Some, I think one went to decision. But a lot of these fights, and I'm like, I started looking at his career. George was fighting like almost every month at one point. He just knocked a guy out. And he got very strange in boxing to see that. And I look back, I'd watch these fights with my dad on ESPN as well. And that was just a big thing growing up. So,
gotta stay active when you're at that age, you know?
Yeah. It was smart. It was real smart. Yeah. I mean, to fight guys that, you know, he basically took a slow and steady approach back, but stayed active. And as long as he didn't get hurt or nothing happened, he went at it. And it worked. He would end up going on to win the World Heavyweight Championship in boxing again. I'm pretty sure he's the oldest heavyweight champion in boxing.
Probably, yeah.
If you haven't tried Game Up, then you are missing out. Imagine your favorite seltzer and your favorite sports drink had a baby, but it's way better than that. Each can is 110 calories, low carb, 4.9 ABV. It's a nice light drink that is not light on flavor. Game Up comes in fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape. Pick it up at drinkgameup.com or at your nearest liquor store.